Hey folks, it's Samuel Heber from SamuelHeber.net, Samuel Heber on YouTube, Samuel Heber on Facebook, Heber Family Adventures on Instagram. I'm here with yet another episode of Heroes of Autism. I'm here with my man Jamiel Owns, who's a father of the boy on the spectrum, and tonight we're talking about faith and autism, how faith can really bring light to how amazing our boys and girls on the spectrum really are, and really help you find a peace as a father. Jamal, before we get into that deep stuff, can you tell the folks a bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I don't want to get too deep out. My name is Jamiel Owns. I am the creator and host of the Autsome show, co-host of the Ben and Jay show, and I am a awesome father. I am just a father, basically on a mission to help other fathers process their feelings when it comes down to hearing the diagnosis of their child having autism. I felt in my journey through life when I found out that my son was on the spectrum and I didn't have anybody to talk to or relate to. It was a painful journey. It was a painful uh, just realization, reality, I could say. And what I did to actually do that is just basically learn how to let go of my ego and my pride and learn how to love completely with my son. And then that transformed me to be able to love others, and then ultimately be able to love my wife the same. So a lot of good stuff from that. I am uh, what I'm a volunteer firefighter here where I live at. Just trying to serve my community. Also, I am what is considered disabled myself by what the government actually stands. I never let that battle uh, hinder me from anything that I want to do. So it makes me even more determined to speak for those such as my son and other individuals that like him or have other disabilities out here in the world.
Mm-hmm. You definitely seem fired up, Jamal, and very inspiring for any new dads that are watching this that have found out their child's on the spectrum. I guess let's start by diving a little deep into your story. Like, what was your first reaction to Jamal? Your son has autism.
Well, this is the most terrifying part of the story is that it's actually just like that. When the doctor came into the room with me and my previous wife, which was Shane's mother, that's my son's name, it was just like, okay, your son has autism, and that's it. There was no explanation. There was no, no scientifical information that they could give to us on why, where, how this happened, anything. At that point in time, I have to tell you, I was extremely angry and extremely scared at the same time. I knew that I had to sugarcoat and basically say, hey, babe, it will be okay. But deep down in my heart, I was scared, which transformed to anger because I didn't know how to process that. I felt helpless. I felt like, where am I going to go? Why my son? And quite frankly, why not somebody else's son? Um, Maybe I should leave. These are things that are going through my head. The journey from the actual office in the car, going back home, all while my son is in the back, just being a kid and just playing as he would play. And it was kind of troubling. It was kind of devastating to who I was or who I thought I was as being a man at that point in time.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely it's just hard for anyone. As I've talked to many dads who have gone through similar experiences, and it is often there is like an urge to run that somehow without us in the picture, our sons who are on the spectrum will have a better life somehow. That someone who can actually handle this will come in
Mhm.
and step up. But it's with God's help, it seems like you just found the strength to like, no, I'm gonna stand my ground and find a way to understand my son. And in previous talks with you, it's all come from faith. You I guess walk us through that part of the story of like you going into church, and was there a sermon? Was there something you just opened up the Bible one day and like bam, it was like there was a message from God saying, dude, stay here and raise your son.
Well, I mean, we're talking about basically transparency. So I wouldn't be transparent if I didn't tell you there was a lot more pain, there was a lot more anger, there was a lot more of sin, of lies, things of that nature that transpired from that moment to the moment that me and his mother divorced, to the moment that I actually separated. I died to myself and became a child of Christ again. And probably, fellas, you could probably relate to that. I tried to find every outlet in the world other than speaking to my partner, which was my wife at the time, about how I was processing these feelings, or even going to talk to someone, somebody, a psychiatrist, a therapist, anybody, because mental health is very important when it comes to our awesome parents dealing with our children. I went to drinking, I went to, never did drugs, but just drinking, and me being transparent here, being promiscuous out there while I was married. These are things that I saw because of society and how society deals with stress and triggers, how I thought I could actually dilute what was going on in my family. What I needed to do was to speak to my partner, who was my teammate, who was my rock, who was going to be there for me and actually hold me down and hold me accountable for maintaining the household as the leader of the household. But instead, I went the other route. And I hope that someone who is going through it, or maybe in the process of going through it, will listen to this and veer off that course. I'm telling you, it's nothing from destruction. Now, don't get me wrong by saying that my son's diagnosis was the cause of me and my wife's divorce. It wasn't. It was a small, minute factor of many things that we had to work on individually before we should have got married, but we didn't. But it did continue to bear its toll on our marriage. It did. And this is a time that is actually supposed to make the bond stronger. So I want to get that message out. What happened to me was that uh, I lost my mom. I physically watched my mom die in front of me. I lost my great grandma, physically watched her die in front of me. These were people who were very, very important in my life. I just, just went on to my own. I was on my own since I was 16. So I was, basically placed into adulthood very early. So I was just surviving, just doing my thing out here, working. I've always been a working man, 2, 3 jobs, just to subdue the pain once again of everything that's going on. And, I always seem to come back to the same gray space, whether I would have got terminated or dismissed from a job, um, almost about to get kicked out of my home, um, about to lose my car, or I had to turn in my car at the time, whatever I was driving. And it became too frequent for me to sit there and say, oh, well, this is a coincidence. No, it started to become a message to me like, hey, I'm giving you free will and you continue to go down the wrong path. What is wrong with you? And I sat there one day and I just cried. And I just cried and I said, God, I don't know what's going on, but I am tired. I remember saying this. I am tired. I remember going down to child support court every month for something stupid because me and his mom didn't have a very good relationship. And when I said I was tired, Lord, and I just basically laid all of my anger, all of my distress, all of my feelings, my ego, my pride to his feet, that's when I felt his presence strong into my life. That's when I felt I started to breathe. I started to open up. That's when I felt like, oh my God, my son, how can I even thought about back in the day leaving him? How could I thought about, oh, this is not fair? How can I thought about oh, he's not good enough, or I'm not good enough, or it's my fault that he has autism. This is when I started to realize that none of that matters. What matters the most is that I showed this child the most exuberant amount of love that a man could possibly give his son. I'm not perfect. I'm not like God. He is more like God than I am, my son. But it is important for me to show him how to love on other people out here in the world as he grows up and absorb these things as a sponge. So that was the pivotal point of me just going around in a vicious circle, ending up in a gray space, a very dark space. I felt alone. I felt like no one was there for me. Yet alone this whole time, God was right next to me this whole time. He was watching me. He was looking at my free will just basically perish in front of me, and he was there to pick me up every single time and say, "Hey, it's going to be okay. Come with me." But every single time I wouldn't. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to create my own path. And you can't do that. You just really, really can't do that. It really, really saved my soul, my mind, everything about me was saved just from that one position where I was at. And it allowed me to love my son like no one has ever loved a son before. And I say that with all due respect to any other fathers out there, just like you, Sam, just like anyone else. But it really allowed me to open up and really love my son, regardless of who was around, regardless of what it may seem like. For me to really be on my social media accounts or be out in public and really love my son. If you see us now out, he gives me a hug in public and I hug him back like extremely, like it's just me and him in that place. And it could be millions of people there. It's just me and him. God allowed me to be able to show him that love. And in return, I'm able to get that love back.
Mhm. It's such a beautiful story of your whole journey of a father was a spectrum in itself. You went from this deep self hatred to find the light and loving yourself and your son and accepting your imperfections. How does I guess Christ help you these days? Like, how do you put him in your everyday practice of loving yourself and loving your boy?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, I mean, once again, I see my son as a blessing, as an angel from Christ. Um, so I learned from him. I learned, these vital points of compassion, empathy, patience, and then once again, love. I learned these qualities from him. How I put them in everyday life is it sounds kind of cliche, but it is actually something that individuals like myself who are Christians or any religion is this what God would do? So if I'm out there and I'm working and I irritate somebody for one reason or another, if I'm driving or they irritate me, is cursing them out or being arrogant what God would do? Or am I to humble myself? Am I to elaborate myself intelligently and say, hey, you know what you did wasn't right, but it's okay. I just want to let you know, just next time, just be a little respectful. It may seem like it's a little watered down than what you're supposed to do. It's not alpha male status, but believe me, you're more alpha male by showing that compassion to a person so they can pass it on when they get angry at another person and continue this flow to go on and go on. Um, I remember one of the key stories when I was going to the church, when I got saved again, when I was reading my Bible, and even to this day, listening to my pastor speak, is that you got to remember Jesus was the son of a carpenter. He was somebody that didn't have the best clothes. He didn't have the best skin. He didn't have the best hair. He didn't have none of that. But what he did is he always humbled himself around those who were considered by others as lower than him or like-minded to him. He always humbled himself. He never thought he was better than anybody. He always wanted to help out. But instead of just helping out monetary, you got to remember is he always spoke in parables. He gave you the information and the power you needed to overcome so many obstacles in your life. I want to be like him. I'm chasing him. This is the reason why I started the Autsome Show. This is the reason why I do the Ben and Jay Show, because of all the trials and tribulations that I've gone through, and it's been many. I mean, from just just living in the urban community in the hood to not having hot water and things of those nature, or being hungry to where I'm at now. I want to be able to share that with other men out there, other women, other families, and let them know that there's somebody that's been through it and that doesn't want to see them go through it and is willing to help them by all means possible.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And that's the huge thing that I dig about Christ is that his lessons on empathy for fellow people. But for a lot of men out there, dads with autistic kids or not, empathy can mean I'll fix it for you. When a lot of times the person that needs empathy doesn't need you to fix it; they just need you to listen.
Mhm.
I'm sure like that's happened with your son that he just needs you to hear him, right? And then dad to come flex his muscles and knock some guy out. He just needs you to like listen. Um,
Yeah, he definitely wants me to be a softie around people. He doesn't like my son Shay doesn't like violence at at all, which is a rare quality, and I love it about him because he actually has stopped me from really getting in a couple people's faces back in my in earlier years, like really. And you think about where would I be if I would have continued on, with an argument and or altercation. But my son was there and he didn't want that to happen. So
mhm. Yeah, our kids are definitely going to pick up on the vibrations of when things are getting too tense and we get too hot headed. What are some things that help you these days from getting to that point where you're just seeing red? Like
I think
what
I
calms you?
think the I think the biggest thing is the fact that my son is watching. He's more of a sponge now than what he was when he was little, and he's watching everything I do. He's listening to the way I talk. He even watches when I do the recordings for the Awesome Show or the Ben and Jay Show. He's watching my interactions. I always say this, and this is a true and fact testament for me and fathers and mothers and everyone just alike. I hope your mindset is on the same thing. When it's my time to actually leave this earth, go to heaven, meet my maker, and my funeral set, I want people to actually come up to my son and shake his hand or give him a hug and a kiss and say, your father was the most amazing man I've ever met in my life. What that requires is for me to leave a paper trail of compassion, of love, of empathy, those things which I'm trying to basically chase a man who continuously showed throughout his existence here on earth and continues to show it from the heaven above. So I'm trying to leave something, a legacy to my son that's going to be far more wealthier for him than money, than stocks, than leaving a house. I want to leave those too, but I want to leave a good name. My last name, he has my last name, he has my same middle name. I want people to be able to recognize him and be like, yo, your dad was a very good man. Your dad was the truth. Your dad helped me. Your dad got me through the situation. Your dad never did me wrong or anything. That's the most important part. If I can do that, successfully do that before I leave this earth, I believe that I've accomplished my role as a father to my son.
Amen. Because our kids are always watching, even our autistic ones that never make eye contact or never look at you directly. Like we are listening, and we are watching you out of the corner of our eye, and we are watching way more and listening more. We may not be able to be like, Daddy did this, Daddy did that, but we are always watching, always observant of what
Mhm.
people like Joel and myself are doing in front of our children. How have you reacted to other dads? I'm sure when you started changing like this, some dads like, Jamal, what are you, some kind of, pussy? Like, why are you being so compassionate? You're supposed to be tough, like that macho, that toxic male, bullshit that is thrown at every
Yeah.
guy at one point or another. How are you able to like stay above that? Because I know a lot of young dads out there. It's really hard to stay above that BS.
Well, I think people, once again, this goes into, many hats that I wear. People see me and immediately get intimidated. I don't ever see it, but it happens. I've been witness. I've seen it. Some crazy stories, but when they get to speak to me, they're just like, it doesn't fit your frame. Like, my personality is a real personable one. Um, Once again, I used to be that person that used to be angry at everybody for no reason. I used to be that guy that if I'm out with my fellas and we get into a little altercation or words with somebody else, I'm the guy that's going to step in and be like, yo, do we have a problem here? That was me. But then I start to realize, uh, and in most cases, it wasn't the individual that had a problem. It's my way of thinking. I had the problem. And I think that's really what's going on now with our younger generation. There is a disconnect from the ability to maintain self-reliance in this world when it comes to the younger generation and to what my generation has done in the past and currently is doing. It's a disconnect, and I credit that to the failure of male role models, of fathers, of just strong-minded men within the communities that are willing to just stand up and be present. You don't have to say much. All it takes is a hey, what's up? Shake your hand, give them a dap, a five, whatever it may be. But if your presence is there, it speaks volumes to these children. If they start to see more and more of you, you start to learn more about them, they start to learn more about you, they become comfortable enough to actually start asking questions. And this, we can actually see what's going on all around the world, but what has continuously been going on for hundreds of years now, when we're talking about racism and race relations and equality, is because we're not asking these questions. So besides looking at what the topic is at hand and the issues that we have at hand, me speaking from an African American male standpoint, is we need to be more present for our children, for our generations. We need to listen, but we need to ask the questions at the same time. I think we really as men need to be standing up out there, cleaning up our communities, outreaching to people, passing out free food, doing drives for the homeless. These things are important.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely it's such a huge thing, and that's one of the things I think is so beautiful about the autism community is that it's more I could say now it's a community, not a disability. Because every time you learn about
Mm-hmm.
autism and you how relative it is, you start learning. You learn all these people that are experiencing it, no matter whether you're black, white, orange, green, all the colors of the rainbow. That autism stretches across all of humanity, and it's just and like when you get into the heart of autism, like race and religion don't matter. It's about just being there for our
Mm-hmm.
kids. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't think of any other way of being more Christ-like than that. Just being none can receive the light except through me, as Christ said. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no more. That's
Now,
so true when it comes to autism. And it's a way I
now,
think.
Sam, man.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just one point to piggyback off what you just said. If you really look into the Bible and actually really look into the Bible, there's not one mention of a particular race, white or black. We're only speaking of Romans, Jews, Gentiles, um, individuals from different parts of the world. There is no mention about race because it only matters is where you're from, your experiences, where you've been, what you've done in your life. And quite simply, if you think about it, maybe the world will be so much better if we remove race from applications, from things that justify who we are and how we should live, and really just concentrate on where we've been, what part of the world we're from. That's just me just reading the word and just really thinking and just chewing on what actually is actually saying. To me personally, that's just a thought. But I just wanted to throw that out there because you said that the autism community, we don't see color. What we see is undying love, something that this world needs, and we need to continue to get it out there.
And then also just it teaches us to accept that we're all neurodiverse, that there's no such thing as normal. That if you pull out the DSM-5 or 6, wherever it is now, like you could fit something in it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, what we have to get back to is just the heart of it, which is humanity, not labels that distance us from each other. How have you taught your son to be proud of himself? Because it's like he faces a lot of, there's still a lot of stigma against mental health. How have you taught him to be strong in himself when faced with uh, with the world, I guess?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because me and his mom just had a conversation about starting to talk to him about him having autism. And
Mhm.
me and my wife, we were actually in the supermarket with him, and I have this autism shirt, just a shirt, looks like almost like Captain America. It just has the puzzle piece in the middle. So my son, out of nowhere, he hugs me and he says, "Daddy, I love you. I love you because you have an autism shirt on, and I have autism, and you love me for that."
Mhm.
And Sam, this was this past weekend. Like when I mean, I looked at him with amazement. We haven't sat down and really conversated about who he is. But what I do make present to him every single day is, for one, that I'm proud of him. I'm proud of everything that he has done and that he's going to do. For two, that he never gives up, regardless of how hard it is. If he doesn't get it the first time, he keeps trying. And three, that he is a superhero. I tell him these three things. For him to convey that message to me as clear as possible, that he loved me for wearing a shirt and I love him for what's on my shirt, made me realize that I'm on the right path without even speaking to him. Once again, he's seeing what daddy is doing. Now, the conversation, we are going to have that conversation, and it's going to go something like this: is basically describing to him, man to man, why he is special. And I don't mean special as far as, okay, there's normal and then there's special, but why he shines. He's a light in this world. That's how I'm going to put it. I'm going to basically place him within the characteristics of God. And there are 16 characteristics of God. You can look it up online. They're amazing. But when you look at these 16 characteristics of God, they simply shine a light on our awesome children. They are the splitting image of these characteristics. And that's what I'm going to use when I talk to them.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that and for any dads that are listening out there, that's who are about to have this, that's the most important part, is the positivity. Because if you focus on what the doctors say your child can never do, I grew up listening to many professionals saying Sam will never be able to speak above 2 syllables. Sam will never have a meaningful relationship. Sam will never, 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 never. All these nevers. But talking to your son your way is celebrating his strength and what makes him special, and that's how we end stigma. Because I get that question a lot: how do we end the stigma? Is it starts with parents focusing on their
Mm-hmm.
children's strengths rather than, oh, I'm Jimmy. I don't think Jimmy's ever going to have a girlfriend. Well, if Jimmy hears that, he's going to
Mm-hmm.
believe that. Our children believe what we say. If you say you're the light man, then they're going to be the light, and they are going to get that girlfriend and that job, and go to
Yep.
school and all that. It really comes to your attitude towards what your child can and can't do.
You're right. Definitely, you're right.
Is there a good age to tell your son that he's on the spectrum? Obviously, he's aware that he is, but like what that means, like it's a very tricky topic. 'Cause I didn't find out until I was 14 myself. It was just because I got misdiagnosed with a couple other things. But it
Hmm.
seems like doing all these talks, like there's always people are finding out different at different ages. Like why is
Hmm.
it okay? Why do you think okay now it's time to have this conversation? Why not? Oh, 3 years ago or when you
I,
found.
I think more, I think more so when you compare it to other individuals who are older. Some people get diagnosed in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s or 60s. I think when you go back to the realization of growth, um, kids are kids. They are fearless, they are adventurous when they are kids. As you progress older and older, you sort of get stuck in your ways. You sort of just think the way you think, and you're not easy influenceable. Kids are influenceable. So I think by giving them the foundation now, and let me speak in reference of second person, giving my son the foundation now to let him know, hey, you know what? You are diagnosed with autism. You know what that means? That means you're the light. That means you are a superhero to this world. That means that you could do anything that you want to if you put your mind to it. I think that's important now because he's learning different things in life. He's learning about himself. He's that preteen level. So throwing that in the mix now is not going to confuse him. It's only going to give him a stronger identity on who he is personally. And he's going to learn how to grow his strengths and also his weaknesses off of that so he could be better equipped for this world long before me being here anymore. And that's another fear I'm sure you have. Once you're gone, just because you're a parent, not because your child is not on the spectrum, but just because you're a parent, you want to make sure that your child is just strong enough for this world, quote unquote strong enough. So that's the same thing with our parent, with us as being parents, especially with our awesome children, and for those individuals who are nonverbal or are severely on the spectrum, we worry about that. What's going to be of my child when I'm gone? This world is cold. This world is very cold, and it doesn't take any names off of, off of anybody. It just continues to go and go and go on. So I think preteen, maybe between 9 and 12 is a very good time to speak to your child about how special he or she are and what their role in this world is. Now, once again, my Christian viewpoint may not be for everybody. There may be someone out there that's Muslim, but if you really look into every single religion foundation is around peace of oneself. So I implore you to take a look at your religion, piece together some characteristics of whoever you worship, and advise that child that they are a light in this world, that their purpose here is to make the world a better place. Because I could be wrong, but I know I'm not. Is that
Mhm.
every religion promotes peace and prosperity to a form. So continue to teach our children that, and I will do so when it's our time with Shane, which will be very very soon. I think before the next school year happens, we're going to have that talk, which will be probably next month.
Yeah, I think that is a really good age because, like, what I dig about your plan is that the fact that you allowed your son to grow up with its only label being his name, rather than growing up and the first thing the child hears is you have autism, and autism becomes your identity. And that's your children have a right to know at any age, but the struggle then becomes like they can't associate outside of their autism, and that's their excuse for why nothing works in their life. But like, instead of listen to dad saying no, that's a part of being young. You're gonna take chances and make mistakes. That's being
Mhm.
young. Autism doesn't make you special in that way. That's why I tell like a lot of people that think that their autism has made them like so special they can't like participate in life. No, like this is part of being like young and naive, and it's something that Jamal went through, and any other person, man or woman, went through. Once that, you don't feel
Mm-hmm.
so alone, and that's the biggest fear I think as a parent, that your child would feel alone, because human beings are meant to, we're social creatures. We're meant to interact with people, and the word autism means being alone. If you
Yep.
translate it, like it's some version of that in Latin. And I think this is how we reverse that by, instead of being like strong, I think being compassionate. Men should be compassionate. Because strength is like
Mm-hmm.
taps too much into, I think, that toxicity that a lot of men are portrayed in our culture as. Um, but there,
True.
there's a way out of that toxic thing. That just because your dad beat you or wasn't there doesn't mean you, as a new father, have to repeat that pattern. You have the power to break that cycle, and it is within you to be the light. And there's always time for forgiveness. That's one of the beautiful things about most religions. There's some form of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing for dads that have gone through years like you have, where it's like we're so angry. Like, learn to forgive yourself, and like that's one of
Yes.
the things you can teach your son, who's watched you go through the process of forgiving yourself for being so angry. And what better lesson could you teach? What more Christ-like lesson could you teach than forgiveness? Um,
Exactly.
that's the whole message of the crucifixion, basically, the power of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I want to say, the dads out there, you don't have to die on the cross. You can walk around the cross and keep on living. You don't have to sacrifice yourself and remove yourself from the picture in an effort to sacrifice your child from pain. Your child will learn more from you being there and working on yourself than you being gone at all. Because he's always going to be out there searching for that love that he never got if you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're going to give him the best that you can in that moment.
Exactly. I think a lot of families, a lot of fathers who've been in marriages, relationships that actually did not work out, that ended, um, after the diagnosis of their child being on the spectrum. I know I had a little bit of guilty feeling. I blame myself for the destruction of my marriage, and rightfully so, because I wasn't strong enough to maintain any type of accountability at that point in time. But just like you say, you don't have to just let things go. Like, hey, you know what? This marriage, it just went down the drain. I'm out of here. I'm gonna start all over. This is not a game. Life is limited to a certain amount of time that you are given. The reset button doesn't work all the time when it comes down to life. Certain situations, yes, but when it comes down to a marriage with your family, especially with your child, a beautiful child being diagnosed on the spectrum, it is most important that you find that strength within you. You find whatever strength you have in you and you make it work. And this is going to take a lot of collaboration between you and your partner. Even if you're on the outs, you have to try to make this work. So if anybody is going to take a message from this tonight, is the fact that you stepping out the door or you ending it is not an option. That's the first thing. If by any chance is you can't reconcile on your differences, that does not mean or give you the right to be absent from that child's life. You can still love your child and be a active father without being in a relationship with the mother. You can do that. It's going to take a lot of patience. It's going to take you to be consistent, and consistent is a very strong word. And I had to learn that because it came to a point where, I went down after the divorce. I filed for custody of my son in order to see him. And it was only able for me to do every other weekend. So as a father, as a male, I'm like, all right, well, I'm doing my fair share as a father by doing every other weekend. I'm not. I'm failing in that part. And this is the reason why now it is more important for me to have him regularly around me, to constantly be calling him, to be involved in his life. You can do this. It's going to take for you to remove yourself away from you and for you to put yourself in your child's position and only make it about them at that time. So those are the two things right there that I want people to really focus on. And once again, it's just to piggyback off your comment, Sam, just about the importance of the male being there is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the other huge thing is like you don't have to go from a-hole to Hercules or superhero in a blink of an eye. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of I think young dads think they have to make that jump. And what I tell myself is if I make myself 1% better every week, I'll eventually get the Hercule like standard. But it's not like being a dad is not like a snap of your fingers. Your child's born. No, it's going to be an 18, 25-year lifelong journey of you making yourself better 1% at a time. And that's easy to tell yourself, oh, okay, this week I'll be at 1% better instead of 100% better, which is daunting for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then the other huge part, I think, stereotype about men is about self-care, that we just shove down all of our feelings, everything that ever bad happened. We never actually address it, which seems like you experienced, which is not self-care, but that's how we're taught as men to take care of ourselves, just shove everything down. How have you learned to
Mm-hmm.
actually take care of yourself, actually show yourself compassion, and actually express emotions without your wife nagging you? Jamal, what are you feeling? Why won't you tell me what you're feeling?
Well, she still nags me regardless. It doesn't matter. It doesn't end with that. But I learned how to process a lot of my feelings is because at the end of the day, um, I have to be proud of who I am, of the person that I've become, and what I'm looking to accomplish out of whether it be speaking about my marriage. What I'm looking to do, am I looking to build a lifetime partner, or am I looking just for someone to sub in just for a short period of time? If you're looking for longevity, you have to break down and strip down the walls that you have accumulated over your lifetime being here on this planet. It's so many things out here, negativity that'll callous the heart. Put your walls up, put your guard up, as most people put it up to. It does say in the Bible, guard your heart. It does say that, but you have to guard your heart in the sense to still have compassion for others, to still have that sensibility to reach out to others, to offer yourself, and do not judge anybody according to their actions, but only for the person that they are. And that's the hardest part because there's people out here hurting each other every single day. But it takes a bigger man to humble themselves and say, you know what, this is not dumb. This is definitely not dumb. I forgive them and move on and do what you got to do. So it took a lot of pain. It took a lot of loss. It took a lot of anger for me to process and for me to get to that point where I was tired, just elated by everything that happened in my life, and for me to just give it to God and just be like, look, I need you. And when I did that, it was just a overall strength that I received from it that allowed for me to be where I'm at right now, to be able to speak openly, but be able to speak in a way that doesn't undermine someone, that doesn't threaten them, but speak with love. And that's the most important part.
Mhm. And yeah, that's all we have in the end is love. Like your muscles, guys, will fade. Your your crew cut, your haircut will go out of trend. Your
Uh-huh.
spinning wheels, your whatever you fancy thing, your Jordans, everything will fade eventually. But what your son will remember is how much you loved him. Um, and that's what Jamal is talking about here is focusing on loving it, and that's where all the strength is. That's where God is, and that's where forgiveness is, and, and that's what you gotta show your sons is that you're gonna keep trying even when things are hard, even when you screw up, even when you royally screw up, you lose your job, your marriage ends, like that you keep coming back. You could when you hit the
Mhm.
there is no restart button with our children. The mark we leave is the mark we leave with our kids. Instead, you chose to find love again. You got married rather than be a bitter, deadbeat a dad. So instead, I'm going to be involved in my son's life. I'm going to talk to him constantly. I can show him that I am willing to open up and love a woman the way she deserves to be loved, and that's how he's going to treat women rather than repeat the self-destructive behaviors you showed early on around the diagnosing time. Like
Mhm.
at this age, he's going to remember the love, not the sins or stupidity or whatever you want to call it. Is you remember
Yep.
that's what kids remember in the end is how much love you gave them.
Mhm. You're right.
So on that note, I always end my interviews, Jamal, with one question: if you change the way the world sees autism in one way, what would it be and why?
Oh man, Sam, you hit me with these these questions. I'm used to hitting them hard with the questions, but now you hit me. Um,
Practice, baby.
I see you. I see you. You getting it. You getting it. I have to say that I want people to imagine waking up tomorrow morning, getting out of your bed, doing your daily routine, your morning routine, and whether you're driving or you're taking public transportation, go out and just realize or just notice that nobody notices you. Everybody is walking past you. People are bumping into you without saying, excuse me, to continue on with walking. People are just living their lives every single day, sort of like you're in a gray area where everything else is colorful, but you're gray. This, unfortunately, is how some of our members of our awesome community, our autism community, is feeling.
Hmm.
Now, I want you to understand that they may be the ones that are in the correct world, and we may be the ones who are actually in the dark. And I say this is because they speak, they feel without barriers. We always have barriers up against us, and it's always because we are battling each and every one of us, and they're just trying to live. They're just trying to live from the day they're born to the day they die. Why can't we be just like them?
Hmm.
Why from the important individuals in our society on how it's supposed to be, how life is, how humanity is supposed to be? Why can't we just learn? Once again, it goes back to listening. We're not listening. All we're doing is patting on the back and saying, hey, you know what? Nice job. You overcame a couple obstacles. Enjoy life. And we go on about what life is to us. We need to slow down. We need to interact with our awesome community, our autism community. We need to look at these kids and we need to learn. That's a message that I just want to send anybody who has any misconception about what autism is, how it is to be on the spectrum, how it is to have a child on the spectrum, how it is to be an adult that's on the spectrum. Just like you saying, what is it to be on the autism spectrum? What it is to be a natural day superhero in a world that doesn't believe in superheroes, but only believe in itself.
Hmm. Amen, man. It's what comes down to is we are the image of God, just like any one of you are, and we are just trying to live an honest life. We aren't built with the social filters that others are built with. We're just ourselves, and that's all God could ask of us. It's all as a parent you could ask your son is to be himself, not be a stereotype of mental health or some statistic
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. You want him to be him.
Mm-hmm.
That the only way people will recognize him is not a number; it's his name, and his
Exactly.
middle name, and his last name, and his
Yep.
actions. That's I want to be recognized as Sam. I don't want people to point at me and be like, autism. No. I want them to know my name.
Exactly. Well,
Um,
the way you cutting out these interviews, Sam, they already know you, man. You the man right now. You're doing it. You
mhm.
definitely are speaking up for the community, man. I applaud you, man. You're an inspiration. Trust
Thank you, man. I'm doing it for the community because autism is a community, not a disability. That's what we say
me.
on
There you
Heroes of
go.
Autism.
There you go.
All right, folks, this has been another episode of Heroes of Autism with Sammy Heber and Jamiel Owns, talking about fatherhood, faith, compassion, love, and love. The big message of tonight, I think, is love is all we have in the end. Strength will fade, but love will
It is
always be there, just like God,
always.
always. All right, folks, it's been real. Peace.